To welcome Casey's Outdoor Solutions as a sponsor to our podcast. Casey's is a premier garden center and gift shop located in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Casey's offers a wide selection of plants, landscaping materials, home and garden decor, and gifts for every occasion. Casey's is committed to providing exceptional service, a unique shopping experience, and value to every customer. Stop in and see what makes Casey's so unique. Located at 21481 State Line Road, Lawrenceburg, Indiana, or call 812-537-3800. Let Casey's help you add beauty to your home.
Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back here in the studio with Merle Hutchinson. Merle, how you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm
the king of the mic. See, I told you we got to get.
Oh yeah, we need new names. The king of the mic.
The king of the mic.
That sounds stupid. We're not doing that.
How you doing today?
I'm good. We're getting. I kind of like this time of year.
Yeah, the hot summer heat.
I like all that, but I also like certain sporting events that are coming on. One thing that you have probably no clue about, but right now, as we speak, the Tour de France is running.
Yeah, I had no idea that was.
You don't even know what that is, do you? They basically they race little tricycles around.
Yeah. Wasn't there like a massive pile up or something with the tour? The lady went out there to go
holding her side. Yeah,
I did know that.
Yeah, well, that actually caught the national news. So
yeah, I bet it did.
Yeah, that was a big deal. But so I watch it every summer. I don't watch every minute of it. I catch the highlights and follow it a little bit. So that's kind of fun. But about every 4 years or 3 years or 5 years, depending on COVID or not.
Yeah, that's right. We had a little break last year,
a little mishap, but we get the Olympics coming up. We have the Olympics coming up.
That's a big deal, right? That's a big deal.
That's good stuff. So I look forward to that.
Here you go. So this will feed right into our show today.
Yeah, let me hear it.
So as we're recording the show, just like you said, Merle, the Olympic trials are going on right now, getting ready for the games. I have a question for you.
I'm being set up. Go ahead.
Do you think any sport, any event, you could have made an Olympic team? Do you think you have what it takes?
Where'd you get this question from? You probably stayed up all night last night. I wonder what Merle could do in the Olympics. Nothing. Oh man, the truth of that matter is, no. There's a lot of deficits going on. A lot of deficits going on in this mind and body.
Yeah.
That
I don't mean now. Like obviously. Now.
Oh well, back in the day, yeah. I mean, back in the day, yeah. No.
I obviously knew now you couldn't. There's no way.
I had a hard time getting out of bed this morning. Are you serious? No, that's a great question. No, I would have to answer that simply as that's not going to. That was not part of my DNA.
Okay.
That was not in my gift set. On a lot of different levels, all the sports that I know in the Olympics are not ones that I'm that great at. And then there's this other thing called drive and heart. And I would lack in that area too. So, yeah, I would come up empty. How about you?
No, there's no way, Merle. Yeah. I can't even have the discipline to drink a glass of water a day. It's not a snowball's chance I could ever actually go out there and be disciplined enough to put forth like the time. You know what? I take that back. If and when cornhole ever goes into the Olympics, I'm going for it.
You think you could do cornhole?
Probably not, but I'm going to try. I'm going to give it a whirl because that could be something I can get behind that.
Yeah. Well, I'll stay tuned.
All right,
stay tuned. Yeah, because good luck with the cornhole.
I need something very unathletic. Like I'm a pretty athletic guy, but not to that degree. Those guys are just freaks, right? They're just great. What you know something I heard? Those the guys in the Winter Olympics, the curling. They do like some massive weightlifting stuff. Like for curling, those guys are still like crazy intense discipline.
Seems like it would ruin
they gotta get
the
their
sport.
arms so they can do they do the brooms on the ice. They got to make sure they can sweep really hard.
Yeah, I remember years ago watching sailing. Competitive sailing, and I used to think, well, that's a sport. And then I watched some of these guys train.
Yeah.
And it's like, holy cow, they really have to go at it and train. So, my vision of what sailing was way different than what was actually happening.
Yep.
So,
well, there's golf is getting ready. It's a pretty new game that's in the Olympics now. I might.
Yeah.
I'm not that good, but.
Well, so this kind of gets us to a question. Nature versus nurture.
All right.
Nature versus nurture. So I want to kind of run this into a situation that I worked with.
Okay.
And it was actually a gentleman that came in to see me for some help. And he came in because he basically was just saying, like, I need to learn to stand up for myself and my family and my wife. Like, I don't really know how to do that. And that was the first guy that actually came and presented, boldly, that problem. Like, most of us guys will not admit, like, I don't know how to stand up for myself. We just wouldn't do that. Right. And he was at least bold enough to stand up for himself by saying, I don't know how to do it.
Sure.
And so I talked to him a little bit, and he kind of gave me this information, and I was like, I kind of need to get more like from like what people around him think. And so I actually invited his wife in on the next session. And man, that was ended up being so good because she gave me a view from her perspective on what she sees him as being. First off, this guy by his nature was always a super nice guy, super gentle guy, soft-spoken guy. That was his nature, okay? Really easy to just kind of hang around and wouldn't want to intimidate you or anything like that. So he was actually just a gentle kind of person.
Sure.
But she was getting so aggravated because, like, he would do nothing without her telling him what to do.
Yeah.
And everything from taking out the garbage to whatever. Like, she'd have to say, I think you need to do this now, or you need to do that. And he'd be like, oh. And it wasn't like he would say, no, I'm not going to do that. He'd be like, oh, okay. Is that what you need me to do?
Yeah.
And we dug in a little deeper and came to find out that because his father was a very authoritarian man.
Okay.
And when I say authoritarian, in other words, a guy who had the big persona of I'm in charge, everybody needs to know it, and he would constantly have to remind everybody. And so he had that dictator sort of persona. And so all the time growing up, when this kid was little, if he even thought about crossing his dad would just drop the hammer. And I mean nasty. Okay, in his face, just kind of smack him down. And because of this boy's nature of just being a gentle kid, he would just kind of cow down because he did not want problems from his dad. He didn't want to get hurt. He didn't want to cause problems.
Sure.
And his dad just continued to run with that all these years.
Yeah.
And the kid grew into a man that way. Like, he would never rattle anybody's feathers. That was not going to be his deal. To the point where he wouldn't do anything because he was afraid to screw up. Kind of like a dog who's been beat and beat and finally goes into a shelter, and somebody goes to look at that dog, and the dog cows down, and we're like, wow, what's wrong with that dog?
Yeah.
And working with this guy, I had to back up a little bit myself and go, okay, like, how much of this is his nature versus how much has been nurtured into him? Because
or the lack thereof,
or a proper nurturing. And so we started working, and simple stuff to maybe you and I and a lot of our strong dads out there listening. Simple stuff like, from now on, you got to order the food when you go out. From now on, you've got to make the phone call to the utility company. You've got, and I wouldn't let his wife intercede.
Sure.
Like because she, by her nature, she's a sweetheart. She would just go, okay, I'll do it. I'll take care of it. I'll do it.
Yeah.
And that kept him from growing.
Sure.
After about 4 or 5 months of practicing, he began to not just stand up for himself, but he actually began to stand up to his dad.
Okay. Yeah.
And when he began to stand up to his dad, it rocked his dad's world.
Yeah.
His dad was like, what in the world is going on here? And which that actually kind of fueled this young man. Like, hey, I can do this.
Yeah.
I can do this. Anyway, to kind of fast forward a little bit, he is now standing tall. He's practicing bringing out his assertiveness as a man would, and in a controlled fashion. You know, that's actually the easy part for him because he's overly controlled.
Sure. Yeah.
And so trying to give him the ability and the practice then to go on. And so the question that really got me thinking is sometimes when we're raising our kids as strong dads, we go, you know, is that just who they are? Like, is there anything we can do to ever change them? Nature versus nurture. And I want to have a good discussion about that because I think we wrap our head around some things that, well, I guess it just is the way it is.
Right.
Like if this guy would have never been confronted by his wife and she just dealt with it, she would have just perpetuated basically a stagnated sort of stuck person, a boy, you know, that never grew. And so through action, he was able to grow through it. So anyway, that's kind of where our conversation goes today.
I like it. So I think we'll definitely have some good conversation to get into this. Before we do, let's thank our sponsors. Strong Dads, we would love to thank the Crimer's Beer House for coming alongside of us. The Crimer's Beer House started in 1982 by the Crimer family. Definitely a Cincinnati favorite. Down there on Route 128 in Cleves, Ohio. Go down there, check them out. Let them know that we sent you down there. Check out their decor. They got a pretty neat little setup there.
Cool stuff. Yeah, also we want to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions. Go to Casey's outside of Lawrenceburg, Indiana for all of your landscaping and house decor. So Casey's has just got a world of stuff down there, from a really cool gift shop to just the grounds that he has. You can walk around his grounds for 2 hours.
Big old facility.
Yeah, and just see the stuff that he's built, you know, that's for you to look at to see if you would like that sort of thing in your yard. So go down and check out Casey's Outdoor Solutions.
Cool. Well, let's get into this. So nature versus nurture. So kind of just a little bit, you know, to hopefully guide our conversation. And being that this is an experience you have, I'll let you kind of explain this a little bit more. What would you kind of, I guess, define when we talk about the nature versus nurture? How would you define those two, especially in reference to, you know, our personality, the men that we are? How would you kind of define those two?
Yeah, well, we started our conversation teasing each other about the Olympics.
Right.
Okay. And so we talk about most of our Olympians, not all of them, but most of them, we would just kind of assume, oh, they must be natural athletes.
Sure.
Okay. And to a large extent, that is true. More natural than most of us. Okay. So nature are really, this goes back to the whole idea of who created you, right? The nature is what your DNA is.
Yeah.
And what your DNA is basically then how your body came together. Like, I think you've insulted me before by saying, bro, I think you're made of junk.
Cheap parts.
Cheap parts, as we've talked about my body falling apart. You're just built cheap. And so that is the nature, right? That's the part that you have a limited control over. And things like that go in that are our athletic ability,
sure,
our intellectual aptitude, our emotional aptitude, our personality, okay, our proneness for certain types of medical conditions. Those are all things that are kind of what I always like to say is hardwired into you, right? And everything from skin color, hair color, all those things, right-handedness, left-handedness, these things are hardwired into us. They are of nature, okay? And so there's very little that we can do to change nature, right? And I'll say this from a very pure biological standpoint. We are definitely finding ways to mess with it more and more, okay, as we do gene alterations and things like that. But if we look at it in its purest form, it just is set. And so sometimes we refer to it as being God-given. These are your God-given traits, your God-given gifts.
Right.
Okay. So this is what you come with.
And well, I mean, and playing into that, like, and my very limited knowledge on this, but different types of, like, different body types.
Yeah.
Right. So when we talk about, like, bodybuilders, you know, speaking of the Olympics, bodybuilders and weightlifters, like, there's a certain gene or certain body type that they have that allows them to gain muscle at a higher rate, you know, or lose muscle. How however that works. Is that correct? I mean, you're obviously in that world. I'm not. But
no, completely. Yeah, like there are guys who are made to run long distance.
Yep.
There are guys that are made to run sprints.
Yep.
There are guys who are made to carry, like we've talked about in the fire world, guys who can just carry a truckload.
Yep.
Okay. And then there are guys that just have a great work capacity or endurance. They can just stay at the job all day. And so these are things that we can enhance or we can mold a little bit, but the raw material kind of is what it is. Okay. Yep. And so, and recognizing that's really important. So, I need to recognize, like in my own kids, okay, what kind of natural gifts are they presenting us?
Sure.
And, we've talked about before, we have to be really careful with some of these gifts because some of these gifts can come off wrongly when they don't socially seem to fit well. Mm-hmm. Like I have a child in my house that never quits talking. That doesn't go over very well in a school setting.
Sure.
Okay. But we've come to say, no, that's a gift.
Yeah.
Because he can. I mean, not afraid to talk to anybody and can talk all day. Yeah. He does talk in his sleep too.
Right.
But part of our job then is to start to mold that a little bit, like, okay, time and place, appropriate,
which is where the nurturing part comes in.
Which goes to the other part, the nurture. Yep. Okay. So the nurture speaks to what the environment is, what the training is, what the support and the resources are that will bring that person up. Okay. Yeah. And there are people who like to stand strong in one camp or the other. Oh, it's all pretty much nature. You are what you are. This is what
Sure.
it is. And nurture is like, well, everybody can succeed if they come from the right family.
Yeah.
And both of those are not necessarily true. We know plenty of great families that have that one black sheep. Well, like you, for instance. You come from a great family.
Yeah.
No, I'm just teasing.
Well, to your point. So this is something that, as a man, that I struggle with what I see right now in society. So when we talk about the God-given, the nature of just, we'll take a young boy growing up. Man, I know that if my parents would have taken me to a doctor, I would have been diagnosed with ADD.
Sure.
Absolutely 100%. And that's just that was just my nature. That's just who I was, mm-hmm. right? And not necessarily that this is always the case. There are exceptions, and there are cases where medication needs to be brought in. My parents refused to medicate me with that because I don't know. I feel like, especially right now, we're so fearful of a boy who has energy, who is rambunctious, who doesn't always follow the rules. And again, this is where that nature part comes in. My parents knew how to, guide me and streamline me into what I do now. And I just feel that if medication would have been introduced, maybe I wouldn't be who I am now. Again, I know there's exceptions and there's time and place for
right.
medication, and we live in a wonderful country where we have the ability to we have medicine that gives us that ability to improve life in a little bit. I just feel like when it comes to that nature versus nurture, like I was born a certain way, and my parents, instead of going a certain route, my parents just nurtured me to make me and develop me into who I am today.
Right.
And I don't know what my life would look like had I gone a different route, had the medication been introduced to my life. And again, the ifs and that, you can always play those out. But I bring that up just because we are talking to strong dads, and when we are talking to strong dads, like the nature part, the biological, the DNA that you were talking about, that the God-given talents, like we as men, we can't do anything about that our kids are who they are, right? But it's that nurture part that I hope we're when we start to have this discussion, like we're going to get into, like that's just something that is greatly missing right now with men out there. Like we need to realize the significant role that nurturing of our kids plays, because the natural part we can't do anything about. Right. But it's just that nurturing part. So
really, for us, in the sake of this conversation, if you are listening to this conversation and you are heavy on the nature side of things, well, it's just, there's nothing you can do. It's their nature. It's, you're pretty much predestined for what you're going to be. One, I disagree with you 100%. And two, that would totally just negate any reason for parenting.
Yeah.
If that is the case, then we don't need parents.
Yep.
We don't need strong dads. So we can't even begin to talk about negating like, well, one's more important. No, that they are equally. And so the reason why Rock Solid Family exists and the reason why strong dads exist is because we believe the nurture side is huge.
Yeah.
We believe it is huge to not just allowing the nature to come out, but to come out well.
Yeah.
To completely flourish and grow to its fullest or best potential. Okay.
Right.
And so if nurture is not important, then sorry, strong dads, you aren't valuable.
Yep.
You don't mean anything.
Yep.
But if it is important, which we know it is because we've run through statistics on this show many times,
yep,
that when I take a father out of the house, I have a higher rate of crime, I have a higher rate of drug abuse, I have a higher rate of dropout, I have a higher rate of depression, higher rate of suicide. You can go through, but when I put a dad back in, all of those numbers start to drop. So the idea that we would even diminish nurture takes away from the whole value of what parenting and being a father is about. Right. So for that reason, like, I won't entertain that idea. Like, well, they are who they are. No, we are all coachable at some level. And so what we'd like to do is be encouraging, and I want to go through some ways that we can help bring out the best of the nature. So what we actually find is timing means everything in nature versus nurture. We actually know certain things, like if I have a child that is born very naturally athletic and like, wow, that kid has all kinds of ability, but he is never allowed to participate in sports, that window of his athletic ability will begin to close. So all of a sudden, like say he's never played any kind of sports, he's never had any coaching. By the time he's in his mid-20s, he might be able to move fairly well, but his brain and body neuromuscular connections, the ability for those to develop will have closed. And so the whole idea of can't teach an old dog new tricks starts to take on some meaning.
Sure.
It doesn't mean that he couldn't improve and get better, but the idea of working to his fullest potential is pretty much done.
Right.
The idea of becoming a pro golfer but starting in your 50s.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, that's a tough thing to do.
Right.
So there are windows of opportunity, and that's why, and most of these windows of opportunity are from the age of about 2 to the age of about 20.
Yeah.
That's where our prime windows are. Oh, man, this is where we got to get the exposure for the nurture, and then we have to enhance the nature.
And when you talk about that exposure, I think a good place to start, like, I don't know about you guys out there, but sometimes when you look at your kids, you're like, how do I nurture something that I'm not sure what I'm even trying to, what am I even supposed to be nurturing? And I think that's where what you had just said, the exposure part. I think, man, as dads, as strong men, we have to expose our kids to as much as humanly possible, right? Again, within realm, obviously, we should know what our kids can take and what they can't take. But we need to expose them to different environments, different activities in their life, because then we may be able to see what those God-given talents are, and then we can begin to nurture those. Where if we never expose them to different environments, putting them in different places, uncomfortable things where failure is probably going to happen, failure is a viable option that might actually happen. Like, if we don't expose our kids into those, then we may never be able to truly nurture them and build them up even more, because the nature and nurture, they have to go hand in hand. Because just like you were saying, you can't have one without the other, because if you have no idea what their natural born abilities are, then how are you ever nurture them? And if all you do is ever nurture them and totally negate any God-given talent, then you're doing them a huge disservice.
Right.
I've shared before on this show, like with my oldest, Ava, we tried basketball because I wanted to expose her, partially because I love the game of basketball.
It might have been about you, but I get it.
So we exposed her to basketball. We wanted to get her involved in an activity. And from that, we realized that Ava just, that pressure of running up and down the court, of that constant, like, hey, pass the ball here, hey, run, go get on defense. She just didn't respond well to that. And right now we're trying to flip the opposite, and now we're trying out golf, and she is excelling, not necessarily in her skills and abilities, but she's just excelling because she loves the game of golf because it's so much slower for her. And we maybe again, I love golf, so we probably would have exposed her at some point, but the basketball experience really led us to try golf because now golf is a much slower pace for her. She's able to actually comprehend. She's able to focus in on a task at hand versus basketball where it's a little bit faster paced. But I bring that up because I think that goes to the idea of nature and nurture together.
Right. And that's what we're trying to help our kids with at an early age, because it's not always super evident like how naturally gifted our kids are when they're young. And so exposure to sports, arts, crafts, music, writing, talking, singing, these are things, all these different areas, that exposure. And let's be very clear, just because your kid has a nature, like let's say a nature for playing a particular sport, man, they are so good at that. That still does not qualify them for the Olympics.
Yeah.
Okay? Because the next thing that has to feed into that is the interest and the love.
Yeah.
All right. And so I've said on this show many times that the athlete I hate to coach the most, the ones that would drive me the most crazy, were my natural athletes that had little interest in what they were doing. Like maybe they could swim like nobody's business, but they hated swimming for whatever reason. They didn't like the kids. They didn't like the competition, whatever it was. If those don't align, all right, then the nature part will be stunted. And again, and that's okay because the kid has to have the interest because of the amount of work that it's going to take to then go to that next level.
Which is to your next point. I mean, there has to be that initial interest in the activity or the whatever they're getting involved in, because with anything, there has to be a work ethic, and it's very, very hard, as you strong dads out there should know, it's very hard to want to work at something that you're not really interested in. It's very, very difficult to do, and it's going to be no different with our kids. I think, with our kids, like we expose them to a lot of things. We see if they have a general interest in it, and then we can get to that, now the next phase of that, we've exposed them to it. We have the interest in it. Now let's work on the work ethic, and that's truly, I really do think this is something my dad instilled in me from a very early age. Like, you may not be the best at it, but you're going to, again, if you have the interest, we're going to work at it. Yeah. We're going to work our tails off to try and improve ourselves, to get better at something. Again, you're going to fail, but man, we got to work at it. We got to try and improve to get better, because if you never fail at something, it's very hard to make those improvements. And my dad was big on just show up, and we're going to put forth effort, and our attitude is going to be there. Yeah,
and so this is another nurture type thing.
Yes.
Work ethic and understanding of work is something that is taught, all right, because it involves driving through something that can be hard and difficult. If you want to help your kids outside of a relationship with Christ, the number one, or the next thing that you need to do, teach them how to work. Teach them how to work, because if they can learn how to work, they can work through a multitude of other problems. Yep. In other words, put your head down and go, even when it's not fun, even when you're not interested. Yep. That's that work ethic. And so that's one of the things that we see missing in so many of our kids today, because we have both parents out of the house working. And in the meantime, the kids are just waking up at 11 o'clock in the morning, turning the TV on. And so there's nothing there to nurture a work ethic. And all of a sudden, the kid joins a sport and starts playing, and the first thing you know, the coach is having them run laps or whatever, and the kid's like, what is this? Like, no, this isn't for me. Yeah. So now I've got possibly a natural gift that will never come to bloom, because they don't understand that they are going to survive through a hard day of work. Yeah. And they panic and they get out of it.
And as we continue on the nurture part, I want to give a shout out to a guy I work with, and I've talked to him before. So one of the next things that you have written down here is the idea of being coachable. And I know you had said this. A guy I work with, his son is in the midst of baseball, right? And so he's playing baseball, and the guy I work with, my coworker, didn't agree with what the coach was doing. The coach wasn't doing anything harmful, anything that would put the kids in a bad place. He just disagreed with the way in which he was teaching his kids. And instead of I'll just say, instead of Joey, the guy I work with, instead of him stepping in there and saying, talking to his son and say, hey, don't listen to your coach, like this is how we're going to do it, which I think in a lot of times happens. That's why youth sports suck sometimes, because parents do stuff like that. Instead of doing that, he just said, hey, he told his son, just go listen to your coach. Be coachable. Be willing to listen to what other people have to say, because our thoughts, and I get into this sometimes, I get in my own head, like, I know better than that person. And sometimes you don't. Like, I'm sitting here watching my daughter getting in golf camp, and I'm like, wow, I've never heard that. This golf pro is teaching, my 8-year-old daughter how to golf, and I'm like, well, that's a pretty cool. Like, but if you teach our kids to tune people off that may have good insight, and we don't teach them to be coachable, because being coachable is a learned behavior. We have to teach our kids to be coachable, teach them to be willing to receive criticism and constructive criticism, and because that there's going to be that growth, and that's where that nurturing really kind of bloom and blossom.
Yeah. Yeah. So the next thing that you can nurture is then teaching your kids what perseverance is. You and I both have a little bit of background in endurance sports through running and stuff like that. And I'm not talented in the endurance sport world. I wasn't going to the Olympics anytime soon, but there was something about getting in the grind, and I don't know, a sense of pride or whatever that would come over to me, saying on a long run, like, no, man, I'm turning off pain receptors and I'm just going to keep going. Yeah. And I don't know why, but that to me has always been something I valued, because I have taken that into the workplace, like, if I have to look at this computer screen for one more minute, I'm going to blow it up. But I got to keep doing it. I got to keep doing it. So it's that perseverance. Perseverance is not, when your kids first do something, they're all excited about it. Sure. But it's, that mid-season, that end of season, when they're like, when is this going to be over? No, this is actually when we're going to double down. Yeah. So teaching your kids to persevere. Again, there's a time to let your kids quit sports, but there's more of a time to encourage them through the hard parts. And so really thinking long and hard before you just ever let your kids quit a sport, outside of abuse or something of that nature. Have them persevere. That doesn't mean they do it the next season, the next year, but you know what? You're in a hard part. Put your head down and go. Yeah.
So good. And one of the last things, and maybe one of the more important things on the whole idea of nurturing, man, we're obviously faith-based here. We have to teach our kids to recognize where their skills, abilities, talents, however you want to word it, where that nature part actually came from. Because if we don't, if all we ever do is, oh, you did such a great job, it was all you, and we never teach them to recognize that we have God-given talents and abilities, man, there's going to be this self-centeredness, this idea that I created myself, that I don't need other people in my life. I don't need to recognize that people came alongside of me, and were able to feed into that. I don't need to recognize that God gave me, this body type, or God gave me this skill, this ability, this just natural born given thing. And I think it's so important to teach our kids that God gave you these things, what you do with it, and how that is nurtured. Yeah, absolutely. Then there's some credit that can be given to certain people, but I think the first part, we have to give that credit back to God.
Yeah, I think that's huge. I mean, from a very young age, teaching your kids that they didn't build themselves. And so, I think even as parents, we somehow like to give ourselves credit for, I made my kid great. Yeah. No, you didn't make your kid at all. You helped nurture them in their nature. Okay, you took that and God gave them that raw material, and you could have helped in the nurture process. But when your kid, especially at a young age, kind of starts to get a little bit cocky or a little bit arrogant about, look what I did, that is a perfect time to just say, hey, let's back off a little bit and let's recognize where your gift came from. Yeah. Because then they can start to learn to have a thankful heart, and they can also then start to recognize talents in other people. One thing that's always kind of amazing to me, we talk about people who shun God and Christianity and things like that. It always is amazing to me every year when I do watch the Olympics to see the number of athletes that do give credit to God. Whether they finish across cross the finish line and they give a praise out to God, or they'll have a cross, on their neck or whatever. And they're like, those athletes were trying to be very mindful of, wow, this is a gift and I better use it well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just a cool thing. And, something that's a nurture thing that we give our kids.
Yeah. So good. I hope this, this topic is of interest to you guys. Man, the nature versus nurture is something that we gotta start ingraining in our kids. We have to, again, exposing them to different things, allowing them to have an interest in it, work on that work ethic. Man, give all the glory back to God and the person who gave our kids and ourselves those nature, the actual nature aspects of our life, the things that we are just naturally just born with. Man, give the credit back where it's supposed to be, and I hope, working through the idea of nurturing the very nature of who we are, I hope is something that all dads can obviously have a common interest in, that we are called to nurture our kids and bring them up. And it's something that right now the NBA Finals is going on right now. And there's the Phoenix Suns basketball coach. He did a little interview, and they kind of called him out and be like, hey, when you're dealing with all these different personalities, all these skills, the best of the best, right? Like, how do you go through that? And he made a statement. He said, I tell the guys all the time, when I call you out, don't take it as me calling you out. I'm calling you up. I want something. I know that you can do better. So it's not that I'm calling you out. I'm calling you up. And I thought it was a great way. And in that interview, he gave credit. He's like, my goal here is a servant leader. I want to be like Christ was to us. And when he said that, I was like, man, that's really cool that I'm not calling you out. I'm calling you up. I want something better for you. I see something in you. I see that nature. I see that natural born gifts and abilities that you have. Man, I want to help improve that whatever way I can. I thought it was kind of a cool little segment that he did.
That is cool. Yeah. In Colossians 3:17, this is kind of the summary of if you can teach your kids this, if you can nurture your kids this idea, they will go a long way in how they live their life. Colossians 3:17, and whatever you do in word or deed, do it all in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. So that's that whole idea of whatever we do. We work for the Lord. It's not about us. And that doesn't mean God doesn't want us to enjoy it, to benefit from it. It means that we're giving it back to him. God enjoys when we are enjoying what he has blessed us with, okay? And so teaching your kids to give or do all of their work and do it to the fullest in him is just a great way to nurture your kids.
I love it. Yeah, man, I think this is a really good show. Hopefully it sparks some good conversation with you and your wife to be able to start to nurture our kids. So we really appreciate you guys tuning in. We're putting shows out every week. Keep tuning in. If you want us to dive in, to tackle a topic, we would love to hear those. Reach out to us. You can email Merle at hutch@rocksolidfamily.org. Reach out to him. Merle and Linda always willing to help. If you guys are struggling in your marriage, struggling in personal stuff you got going on, reach out. Call Rock Solid Families. They would love to come alongside of you and help you out in that. Again, thanks so much for Kramer's Beer House and Casey's Outdoor Solutions for coming alongside of us. Really do appreciate you guys. Allows us to do this every week.
Keep doing what we do.
I love it.
So I on just a tail note of this, the gentleman that I talked about at the very beginning of the show, he was very much beat down because he thought this is how life is going to be for him. If any of you guys are out there and you feel like, how did I get stuck in life? Chances are it was through a poor nurturing. I can't even tell you how many times that I have a guy come in and he's got all kinds of problems in his life, and I say, tell me about your parents.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost always, well, this was a bad situation, blah, 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 blah. So that leads us to say, okay, well, what could we do in the nurturing side? And so don't sell yourself short thinking like this gentleman did, like, well, I guess this is just how I am. This is what it's going to be. No. I mean, we can re-coach a lot of things. It may be a little bit longer, a little bit harder. The practice might be different than what you're used to, but we can work through these things. These are new habits and skills that we can build. So do not give up on that. Please reach out, as Kyle said, to us, and let us help you get through those things. So sign us off, dude.
Heck yeah. Really appreciate you guys. Go out there and be some strong dads. Hey, this is Kyle Crawford from Strong Dads. Strong Dads podcast would love to thank the Crimers Beer House for coming alongside of us. The Crimers Beer House was started in 1982 by the Crimer family, and since that time, they have definitely become a Cincinnati favorite. So if you're looking for an incredible meal in an incredible setting, definitely go down to Route 128 and check out the Crimers Beer House.